Well, hello again, and welcome to our Tuesday chat. And can you believe this is our 10th Tuesday chat? And we're delighted to have today Reverend Andrew Dougherty. So, good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this Tuesday chat.
Great to have you, Andrew. And I suppose for those who don't know, Andrew is the District Superintendent of the Southern District of the Methodist Church in Ireland. So for all you Church of Ireland and Catholic people tuning in, he's the bishop. So I've got to be on my best behaviour today. No, not at all. It's not like that. But no, Andrew has that role of oversight and leading, but he's going to tell us maybe a bit about that a little later. But maybe first of all, Andrew, that we do sort of get to know you a bit. Do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself? Maybe your family initially, and so.
Yeah, I'm originally from Londonderry in the northwest of Northern Ireland, and my two brothers still live there. I have an older brother, Philip, and a younger brother, Stephen. Unfortunately, my mother died a few months ago, and my father died about 6 years ago. But I still keep in contact with my two brothers, Philip and Stephen. And in terms of my own family now, I'm married to Joyce. And we have three children: Matthew, who's 24, Patrick, 21, and Charlotte, who's almost 18. Matthew's struggling a little bit working at home, and Patrick is at university in London. So we haven't seen him for about 8 months. So we're missing him, but at least he's happy doing what he wants to do, etc. So that's the family at the moment.
Great, super. That's great, Andrew. Well, I've known Andrew a very long time. I think it's fair to say, and so Andrew was the circuit evangelist or circuit lay pastoral worker on the Enniskillen circuit. A long time ago when I was in my teens anyway, and I think Andrew is still just in his teens. So do you want to just, and we enjoyed all, I think if my memory is correct, the first time I met you was at a social in Knockniny Hall, and maybe you didn't know what had hit you at that time, but do you want to say what something about maybe your early life and then what brought you to that point?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a very young age, I had this feeling that God was calling me into ministry, but I was very quiet, believe it or not, and maybe very insecure. But a number of people in my home church, would have talked to me and said, Andrew, we think, God might be, calling you into ordained ministry, and it's something that you should think about. But I wanted to take one step at a time, and I wanted to discern that very slowly. For example, so I went to Cliff College for a year and really enjoyed my time there. And I finished off my local preacher's studies. And then after that, I applied for the lay pastoral, it was a lay evangelist position actually on the Enniskillen circuit. And so that's what took me to Enniskillen, and it was a wonderful 3 years, because I wasn't a youth pastor, I wasn't a children's worker, I was a lay pastoral assistant, and in effect, I was doing the job of a minister. So I was preaching 3 times a week. I was involved in school assemblies. I took part in funerals, etc., etc. So I really was doing the work of the minister, but I was kind of thrown into the deep end. And it was actually very, very good for me. And in terms of getting to know Stephen and Knockniny, I was particularly pastorally responsible for Florence Court Methodist Church and for Black Lion Methodist Church, and also Knocknunny. So that's why I got to know Stephen and his family, etc., very well. So wonderful 3 years, and then I did candidate for the ministry, and I was accepted conditionally, and the condition was that I had to pass a second A level. But unfortunately, I didn't pass that second A level. And then I followed the Reverend Derek Haskins to Queen's Parade Methodist Church for a year in Bangor. And so I became a youth and community worker there. And at the same time, I studied for the second A level, and eventually I passed it. And then I was accepted into the ministry after that. So wonderful years, and challenging years, but good years as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting for me to hear. And it was a good time on the Enniskillen circuit from the members' perspective,
Thank you, Stephen.
as well. So, and of course, I remember visiting you in Bangor as well. So, now at Edge Hill College, do you want to say anything about your time there at all?
Yeah, I mean, I again, I had a wonderful time at Edge Hill College. My second year, I spent at Drew Theological School in New Jersey. And I mean, when I was at Edge Hill College, you were kind of spoon fed in many ways. And you know, there was one public telephone downstairs that nobody ever wanted to answer, etc. But when I went to Drew Theological School, I literally was a small fish in a big pond, and you were kind of left on your own. And it was quite a big theological school, and it was extremely liberal. And so I remember, you know, when I just arrived and walking through the campus, you know, people were hugging trees, for example, and no matter what your theological persuasion, you were listened to, and you were accepted, and you know, you had a part to play in the life of the school. And that was a wonderful experience. It was just wonderful to meet people from different backgrounds, and from different countries. And I suppose because of my time, not only as a circuit evangelist, but because of the first year that I spent in HL Theological College, that really helped me to be the person that I needed to be at Drew Theological School, because I knew what I believed, and I had some understanding of theology, etc. So I suppose my horizons were broadened when I was at Drew Theological School, and then for my third year, I came back to Edge Hill College again. So it was a wonderful 3 years in Edge Hill College. I really enjoyed my time there.
Super.
Or 2 years in Edge Hill and 1 year in Drew Theological School, should I say?
And that's where you met Joyce.
And I met Joyce in Edge Hill College. Joyce was the housekeeper stroke cook, and Joyce has always worked hard. And I remember when I first met her in my first year at in Edge Hill College, I asked her to go out for dinner, I think, because I suppose initially it was because I was aware that she was working very hard as well, and I wanted to give her a bit of a break. But I suppose our relationship blossomed. And then, of course, I mean, we were going out with one another in the middle of my first year in Edge Hill, and then I spent a year in Drew Theological College. So although that was a bit of a challenge, it was probably good for our relationship as well. But yes, I met Joyce in Edge Hill. And then when I was stationed after my third year in Edge Hill College, the stationing committee in their wisdom decided to station me to the West Cork circuit. And by the way, I had a wonderful time in West Cork. And Joyce and I were due to get married in the December of the year that I had moved to West Cork. But because I was being stationed to West Cork, we decided to get married a little bit earlier. So so I moved to West Cork in July, and Joyce and I got married in September. And again, we had a wonderful number of years in West Cork together, and that's where Matthew was born, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I remember visiting you in West Cork and Dunmanway. Actually, it was a road trip. Myself and a friend went on from Fermanagh, and we stopped off for a day or two where I am right now in Roscrea, Mansfield, Richard Road, and then went on to you and stayed with you for a few days, and then come back through Roscrea again on the way back up to Fermanagh. So anyway, that's just my little memory.
No, I remember the visit with Paul. Yeah. There's a lot I could say about it, but it was a wonderful visit, and yeah.
And then, do you want to say? I mean, you've been in a number of different places. Do you want to say about the next few moves you had, and any thoughts from those?
Yeah. So as I said, my first appointment was West Cork, and we had a wonderful time in West Cork. But Joyce's mother was very ill, and traveling from West Cork to visit Joyce's mother in Enniskillen was a bit of a challenge, especially with a young child. I mean, it was kind of an 8-hour journey. And so because Joyce's mother was very ill, we asked the stationing committee would they consider moving us anywhere in Northern Ireland, just to make life a little bit easier and just to be closer to Joyce's mother, who I say was very ill. And so we were moved to the Ochnacloy and Monaghan circuit. So we lived in Ochnacloy, which is in Northern Ireland, of course, but I also had responsibility for a church in Monaghan. So that was interesting to be part and parcel of the life of that circuit. So I had responsibility for three churches in Northern Ireland and one church in the Republic of Ireland. And after that, we were moved to Longford, and there were 4 churches at the time on the Cavan and Longford circuit. And there was an awful lot of traveling on that circuit. For example, some of the churches, or one of the churches was about 50 minutes away from Longford. Another church was 40 minutes away. But I have to say, I have enjoyed every circuit that I have been stationed to. And then after Cavan and Longford, we were sent to Bray, and that was a real luxury, because although Bray was and still is part of a larger circuit, I was responsible just for Bray. And so that was another great experience as well, because it was much easier to get to know the people and to get to know the wider community, because that's where I was living. And then after my time in Bray, we were then stationed to Methodist Centenary, and I was actually the Minister of Methodist Centenary for 9 years. And again, that was a wonderful honor, because I was also the superintendent of the Dublin district, which was a bit of a challenge, because it's hard to be responsible for a church and also to have that role of district superintendent. It's hard to do either job well, but nevertheless, it was a good experience as well for me. So it was nice. It was nice that the children and Joyce and I, that we had 9 full years, in Methodist Centenary Church, and that the children were able to, get to know friends and
Yeah.
and build relationships over a 9-year period, etc.
Mm.
So it was a real privilege.
Super. Thank you, Andrew. Admittedly, as you mentioned these different places, I'm thinking of the memories I connect with you in those places. So, and I was, when you were in Knocknacloy, I was in Dungannon as a lay pastoral assistant, and remember meeting with you at that time, and then just to explain, I followed Andrew in Longford, the Cavan and Longford circuit. So, and I suppose maybe it was then when I went to Gorey, we were on the same district again, and then you were the district superintendent at that time. So, yeah, just in your reflections, maybe on those different settings you've been in ministry, are there things that get you going? Most things that interest you in particular, a ministry emphasis? What are there particular areas that are strongest for you?
I suppose, Stephen, the challenge has always been, and the challenge continues to be, how do we make a difference in the wider communities in which the churches are situated, and that that has always been the challenge, and the reality is it's even more of a challenge in this modern world. So I think back, for example, to my time in West Cork, and the circuit had a marquee. Now I don't know where the marquee came from, but the circuit had a marquee, and that marquee, for example, was put up in the Manse Garden in Dunmanway, and we had a holiday Bible club. But we had a holiday Bible club in Bandon. We had a holiday Bible club in Ballydehob, and that was one very exciting way of trying to reach out to the wider community when we were in West Cork. And I'm talking about hundreds of children were involved in those holiday Bible clubs year after year after year, and very few Methodist children. It was children from the wider community, and all of those communities were very open to being involved in those holiday clubs, and that's always a challenge. So when I was in Knocknacloy or Longford or Bray or Centenary, the challenge is how do we reach out to the wider community. Even when I was in Methodist Centenary, the reality is that was a scattered church. So there are very few people who are connected to Methodist Centenary who actually live in the area. Most people travel in from other areas, and the challenge has always been, who do we connect to? Certainly when I was in Methodist Centenary, do we connect to the users who use the building, for example? And there are hundreds of people who walk through the doors of Methodist Centenary every week. So that's always been the challenge, and it continues to be the challenge. We want to support the people called Methodist within our congregations, but we also want to try and reach out and impact the wider community with this good news that we talk about and that we sing about and that we read about. But how do we do it in this modern world in an effective way?
Yeah, certainly. Well, that's the question we very definitely need to grapple with. Well, and maybe that sort of leads into, so you've mentioned where you've been stationed as a minister. So things changed 20 months ago, let's say, when the Methodist Church just changed their structures, and so of 3 large districts with a full-time district superintendent, which so you're the district superintendent for the Southern District, and so you're in that full-time role, And do you want to tell us about what that is and what that ordinarily looks like?
Yeah, so just in case some people don't know, the Southern District uh, incorporates almost the whole of the Republic of Ireland, apart from Longford, Sligo, and Donegal. So geographically, it is huge. So there are about 16 churches, 16 circuits, and about 50 churches, and a membership of about 5,500 people. So it's small numerically, but it's huge geographically. And I suppose part of my frustration at the moment is that I'm not able to visit. I mean, Zoom has its place, and it's good and all the rest, but there's nothing like visiting people. There's nothing like visiting churches. There's nothing like, meeting ministers and leaders in their homes, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
I really miss that, and I want to say that to me that's a very important part of the job, and I look forward to traveling again soon. But I mean, I don't see myself as an expert, Stephen. I don't see, but I see my main role is to listen to ministers, to listen to leaders, to listen to our members, but also to challenge and to encourage, to challenge them to think about what does it mean to be relevant disciples in this modern world. I mean, we talk about it, but what does that actually mean in this modern world? And what does it mean to be involved in outreach initiatives? I mean, taking into consideration our people power, taking into consideration our resources, taking into consideration our buildings. How do we impact the wider community? And it's not easy. But it's something that we need to think about it, and it's what our main focus needs to be, it seems to me. I mean, the reality is, when I first came into ministry, I actually believed that mission was my responsibility, and mission was the responsibility of the leaders or the members, and so we had to think about clever programs, or we had to think about things that we could do in order to encourage the wider community to be part and parcel of our church communities. But now I realize that mission is not my mission, or mission is not the members' mission. It's God's mission. Yeah. And even if we're doing nothing, God's out there busy, transforming communities and transforming lives. And I suppose part of the challenge for all of us is trying to discern, well, what is God up to? What is God up to in Rosscray? What is God up to in Dublin? What is God up to in Waterford? And how can we get involved? How can we help him? How can we support him in his mission? And one way, and this is only one way of trying to do that is trying to think about, well, what are some of the needs of the community? So what are some of the needs of the community, say in Clock Jordan or wherever? And again, taking into consideration our buildings, taking into consideration our people power, taking into consideration the gifts and the graces of our people, is there anything that we could do to help meet that need? Now, maybe there isn't, but maybe there is. And I suppose it's just trying to prayerfully be intentional. And I know that's an overused word, but I think that's what we've got to try and do. So there's no kind of easy answers, and it's going to be different for different situations and for different contexts. But our focus needs to be mission, and our focus needs to be discipleship, not necessarily to grow the Methodist Church, although I would love to see the Methodist Church growing, and that's my hope and that's my prayer. But more importantly, it's about growing the kingdom of God, at least for me.
Yeah, yeah. Powerful, Andrew. Yeah, thank you. I kind of don't need to ask any more questions now. I mean, we just heard your passion there, and thank you for that. And thank you for your leadership, for and your encouragement for. I'll say that as a minister, and for the ministers, for the circuits, and for your interest in that regard. And certainly we, on the North Tipperary circuit, we appreciate that. We appreciate knowing that, you know, we're just not alone in our own little corner, but we're connected, and helped and supported in our ministry here. I mean, and this is all in the context of a society and a country where, yes, we're going through the challenges of this pandemic, and we have, whatever things will look like when we leave it, there will be plenty of things we'll be very glad to get back to, maybe certain things that we will just look at differently as a result. And then maybe even the country that we're in, that has experienced so much change, particularly from a church perspective, over the decades. Do you want to say anything more about the challenges and opportunities that the church faces in the 2020s Ireland?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a couple of things maybe I want to say, Stephen. I mean, first of all, I'm hearing time and time again that many of our ministers, many of our churches are connecting with people virtually, that may never ever darken the doors of our churches. But it seems to me we still have a pastoral responsibility for those people. So even when restrictions are lifted, and even when we go back to normal, whatever that might be, it seems to me that we still have a pastoral responsibility for those people. I mean, some ministers are telling me that hundreds are viewing their online services. Now, not hundreds are attending their churches, but hundreds are viewing their other online services. So how do we keep connected with those people? How do we develop a relationship with those people? It seems to me that that's part of the challenge in the future. This has been a very, very hard year for everybody, and it's a hard year for lay folk, and it's been a hard year for ministers as well. And I think somehow, and again, I'm not sure what the answer is, Stephen, but I think we need to try and help our people, and we need to try and help. We need to give an opportunity for the wider community as well. Maybe to reflect on the trauma of the past year. And in fact,
Yeah.
we all know that this might go on a little bit longer as well. So there's been a lot of loss. There's been a lot of pain. There has been a lot of fear. We can't just forget about it. So, you know, if in a couple of months' time, God willing, all the churches open up again, and by late summer, you know, we're living a relatively normal life, we can't forget about the past. You know, we need to help people to reflect on the trauma and the loss, and it seems to me that that's another immediate challenge that we need to prepare for, and that we need to think about now. And I know this has been a difficult period, a difficult time for everybody, but I think I think ministers, or at least, you know, or those in leadership in general, have a particular burden to carry, because I mean, speaking personally, You know, I'm a Methodist minister, I'm a leader, as you've said, Stephen, but I'm also a human. And I've also got my own baggage, and I've also got my own fears, and I've also got my own worries. And yet at the same time, you know, I have faith in God. I have hope in God. I believe that He's ultimately in control. But yet at the same time, I also go through,
Mm.
you know, I also have down times you know, challenging times as well.
Mm.
So uh, you know, and I think it's been difficult for a lot of people to have meaningful downtime, and so it's how we have downtime, relaxing time during this challenging period as well, that seems to be another issue. I don't have all the answers, but I
Yeah.
suppose I'm aware of some of the issues, and I think it would be a mistake if we think we just can go back to normal.
Mm.
You know, that we do everything that we've done before. Um, I think there's some stuff that we need to forget about, and you know, there's some stuff that we need to you know, that we need to take on board again.
Mm.
But I think again we need to take time to reflect on our learnings. What have we learned about ourselves? What have we learned about God over this past year as well?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, very true. Yeah, well, thank you, Andrew. That's just so clear and powerful. Well, I think we're coming towards the end of our time. I can imagine you going back into the house and having Joyce's freshly made scones, or the things that her great baking and cooking. That and Meg the dog. You have a dog called Meg, is that right?
we have a dog called Meg. She's actually sitting in the study with me as we
Okay.
speak, Stephen, and she's sitting over in the corner here. She's 14 years old,
Okay.
and she's in good form. She needs to be groomed actually, so I'm hoping to take her to the groomer on Thursday. But she's in good form, Meg.
So, as you discovered before, the dog I'm looking after at the moment is called Meg. So, um, and good. Well, listen, Andrew, thank you very much for sharing with us today. We really appreciate your time. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen, for the opportunity, and God bless to everybody.